There are places in this world where stone becomes something more than stone, where architecture transcends the merely human and enters the realm of the divine, where a civilization with nothing more than obsidian tools, collective will, and an intimate knowledge of the sky above, raised monuments so precise, so intentional, so profoundly calculated, that even now, centuries after the last priest descended its steps, centuries after the last offering was laid upon its summit, the structure continues to perform, continues to speak, continues to move. El Castillo still rises above the flat limestone plain of the Yucatan Peninsula, as it has for nearly 1,000 years. 98 feet of terraced stone catching the morning light, casting shadows that fall not randomly, not by accident, but exactly as its builders intended, and exactly as they designed. To stand before it is to understand, with a sudden and almost unsettling clarity, that the people who built this place were not primitive. They were not guessing. They were not improvising in the dark. They were masters of time itself, and El Castillo was their masterpiece. Long before the Spanish arrived to rename, rewrite, and reimagine this world, the lowland Maya had built a civilization of extraordinary complexity across the vast sweep of Mesoamerica. They charted the stars with an accuracy that would not be matched in Europe for centuries. They developed a written language of glyphs that encoded history, theology, and political power with breathtaking sophistication. They built cities in the jungle, Tikal, Palenque, and Copan, each one a testament to an urban intelligence that defied the dense and unforgiving terrain. And then there was Chichén Itzá. Rising to prominence between roughly 600 and 900 CE, and reaching the height of its power between the 10th and 13th centuries, Chichén Itzá was not merely a city. It was a sacred capital, a place where political authority and cosmic order converged in stone and ceremony. Situated in the northern Yucatan, where the flat karst landscape offers few natural elevations and fewer still natural defenses, the city's builders compensated with ambition. What the land denied them in topography, they created themselves. They built upward, they built deliberately, they built to be seen, and more importantly, they built to be understood, not by ordinary eyes alone, but by the heavens. At the center of it all, anchoring the great plaza of the city's northern precinct, stood the structure the Spanish would later call El Castillo, the castle. The Maya knew it differently. They called it the Temple of Kukulcán, named for the feathered serpent deity whose presence was woven into every surface, every staircase, every carved and polished edge of the building's extraordinary form. To approach El Castillo for the first time is to experience something that resists easy explanation. The pyramid does not announce itself gradually. It appears, suddenly, completely, as one crosses the broad expanse of the plaza, a stepped colossus of pale limestone shimmering under a sky that in the Yucatan is almost always impossibly blue. Its 4 stairways ascend at an angle that seems to lean slightly toward the viewer, an optical illusion born of extraordinary geometric precision. Its 9 terraced levels diminish as they rise, each platform slightly smaller than the one below, drawing the eye upward to the flat-topped temple at the summit, where once the smoke of copal incense rose into the open sky. But the true nature of El Castillo reveals itself only when one begins to look more closely, only when one begins to count. Each of the pyramid's 4 stairways contains exactly 91 steps. 91 steps multiplied by 4 equals 364. Add the single step of the upper temple platform and the total reaches 365. Precisely the number of days in the solar year. The Maya did not build casually. Every number was a message. Every stone carried meaning. The pyramid was not simply a monument to divine power. It was a calendar rendered in 3 dimensions, a clock built to the scale of the sky. The terraces, too, speak in numbers. 9 platforms, split by each stairway, produce 18 sections on each face of the pyramid. 18. The number of months in the Maya solar calendar, each containing 20 days. The mathematics compound, accumulate, and ultimately overwhelm with their precision. El Castillo was not designed by engineers who happened to be religious. It was designed by people for whom mathematics and religion were the same language, a language they spoke fluently in stone. Twice a year, the sky itself descends to the pyramid. At the spring and autumn equinoxes, as the sun moves through its precise celestial arc and the afternoon light falls at the exact angle the Maya understood and anticipated, something extraordinary occurs on the northern staircase of El Castillo. 7 isosceles triangles of light and shadow form along the balustraded edge of the stairway. 7 luminous diamonds of sunlight separated by 7 pools of deep shadow, undulating from the summit downward until they connect with the carved stone serpent head that waits at the base of the staircase, massive, open-mouthed, ancient. For a few brief minutes, the feathered serpent lives. Kukulcán descends from the heavens and touches the earth, the god of wind, sky, and creation, the deity whose image appears in variations across Mesoamerica, known to the Aztecs as Quetzalcoatl. It is known to the Maya as the one who brought knowledge and civilization to humankind, returns seasonally, predictably, with a precision that no amount of coincidence can explain. This phenomenon, which modern astronomers and archaeologists have verified with instruments that the Maya never possessed, was engineered. It was planned. It was calculated by people who had watched the sky for generations, who had recorded the movement of the sun with an obsessive exactitude, who understood the relationship between celestial angles and the shadows they cast on inclined stone surfaces, and who translated that understanding into architecture of staggering intentionality. The equinox of El Castillo was not a discovery. It was a design decision. Inside the pyramid, secrets compound further still. In 1931, Mexican archaeologists began excavating beneath the outer shell of El Castillo and discovered something that permanently altered their understanding of the structure's history. Beneath the pyramid, they could see the pyramid whose magnificence they had been studying for years. There was another pyramid entirely, an older temple hidden inside the later construction like a stone within a stone. The Maya, it became clear, did not always destroy their sacred structures when they wished to build anew. They enclosed them, they absorbed them. The old temple became the inner sanctum of the new one, its sanctity preserved, its power amplified by the outer shell that now surrounded and protected it. Within this inner temple, explorers found a chamber of haunting beauty. There, or frozen in the eternal darkness beneath 1,000 years of limestone and silence, sat a chak mul, a reclining stone figure with knees raised and head turned at a right angle, bearing on its abdomen a shallow basin once used for ritual offerings. Its eyes, originally inlaid with gleaming jade, had long been taken or lost, yet the figure retained something ineffable, a presence that the darkness seemed to intensify rather than diminish. And beside the chak mul, a throne, carved in the form of a jaguar, the most powerful animal in the Maya symbolic universe, Lord of the night, guardian of the underworld. The throne was painted brilliant red, its spots inlaid with jade discs, its teeth fashioned from polished flint. A king had sat there, a priest had prayed there, in the darkness beneath the pyramid. At the intersection of the human and the divine, someone had conducted rituals whose exact nature remains unknown, whose prayers have been absorbed into the limestone, whose intentions can be deduced but never fully recovered. History becomes most powerful at the precise point where it becomes incomplete. The people who built El Castillo, who carried the stones and mixed the mortar and climbed the scaffolding and laid each course of dressed limestone with measured care, were not abstractions. They were human beings living in a world of tremendous consequence, where the relationship between earthly action and cosmic order was understood as immediate and reciprocal. To perform the correct ritual at the correct moment was to sustain the motion of the sun. To build the correct structure in the correct alignment was to honor and affirm the order that held the universe together. The great plaza surrounding El Castillo was not merely empty space, it was stage and sanctuary simultaneously, a place where thousands gathered on sacred days, where the ball game was played in the adjacent court with its extraordinary acoustic properties, where the sounds of ceremony and celebration and perhaps sacrifice rose into the open sky. The sacred cenote, the great natural well at the end of its long stone causeway, received offerings from across the Maya world: jade, gold, obsidian, and in darker chapters, human lives surrendered at the threshold between the terrestrial and the divine. All of this, the ritual, the astronomy, the mathematics, the sacrifice, the artistry, converged at El Castillo. The pyramid was the axis around which the city's entire spiritual life rotated. To climb its steps was to ascend toward the heavens. To stand at its summit was to occupy briefly the position of the gods, or at least the position of those entrusted to speak with them. The Spanish arrived in the 16th century, carrying cross and sword, and a theology that admitted no competitor. They found Chichén Itzá in a state of partial abandonment. The city had declined centuries before the conquest, its population dispersed, its ceremonies diminished though not entirely extinguished. But the pyramid still stood. Would always stand, as it turned out, resistant not only to centuries of jungle encroachment and tropical storm, but to the extraordinary ambitions of a colonial project determined to erase what it could not incorporate. They could not erase El Castillo. They gave it a new name, the castle, and in doing so revealed more about themselves than about the structure. They saw fortification. They saw height used for defense or domination. They did not wish to see what was actually there, a monument to a comprehensive and sophisticated understanding of the cosmos, a building that was simultaneously a temple, a calendar, a theater of divine light, and a declaration of civilization. The pyramid endured their misreading, as it endures ours. There are structures that survive because they are durable, and then there are structures that survive because they mean something, because the knowledge and intention compressed into their dimensions speak across centuries, across language barriers, across the silence of extinct civilizations, and say something to every generation of human beings who stands before them. El Castillo is the latter kind of structure. Every equinox the shadow still descends. The feathered serpent still moves along the northern staircase, still connects the heavens to the earth, still performs the sacred drama that was choreographed into the building's very geometry over 1,000 years ago. The priests are long gone. The city is long quiet. The names of the architects, the kings who commissioned them, the laborers who lifted the stones, all of it has been absorbed into the deep silence of history, legible only in fragments. But the building remembers. The mathematics still work. The sun still cooperates. And twice each year, in the slow golden light of a Yucatan afternoon, the ancient knowledge encoded in 91 steps and 9 terraces and carefully inclined balustrades performs itself again, as precise, as intentional, and as astonishing as the first time it was witnessed, by people who understood, in a way the modern world is only beginning to recover, that the sky and the earth were never meant to be separate, that the greatest architecture was not what challenged the heavens, but what listened to them. El Castillo still listens, and for those willing to stand in its presence and pay attention, it still speaks.